What's going on, guys? Welcome into the Point After with Mitch Kaiser. I'm your host, Mitch Kaiser. Happy Friday. We have made it. We are finally here at college football week 0, which starts tomorrow. I cannot wait for the first game at noon. We have made it to Football Friday. I'm ready to give you guys my final college football playoff predictions for the 2026 season about to get underway. So excited to give you guys these predictions and show you my final bracket and my national champion. After hours of grinding the tape all summer long, reviewing some data, some numbers, just really grinding some film, I've come to the conclusion, and I'm still questioning my pick, but I'm ready to finally reveal my college football playoff bracket and for you guys for the whole season. You can judge my bracket, roast it, worst pick ever, I'm sure it could be, but let's get into it now. Can't wait to reveal the final bracket. We're going to start with conference championship games here on the left. Shout out Pro Football Network for their awesome college football playoff predictor that they have on here. They have a really good system that you can use in their college football HQ. It's free, so as you can see, free CFB playoff predictor. So get in here and build your own rankings, build your own bracket. You can make power rankings, you can make bracket picks, and then you can show your national champion and share the screenshot online. So really good system here for Pro Football Network. So not going to waste any more time. Let's start with the conference championship games. Let's go 10 by 10 for all the conferences, starting with the Power 4, specifically the ACC title game. So as you can see here, first game, my ACC championship. Don't worry as much about the numbers on the sides. I don't think a lot of these are like exact for what their final ranking could be at the end of the season. But Miami and Louisville, that is who I have in my ACC title game here. I think the Hurricanes are ready to win their first ACC title because they didn't last season, which is crazy. They got in as an at-large, not as an ACC champion when Duke won that. So I think Miami is far and away the best team in the ACC, but not even close. I think they have the highest odds to win their conference out of all the Power 4 conferences. So I like Louisville to go 11-1 and literally lose the first game of the season to Ole Miss and then run the table and make it to that game. However, I do think they come up short against Miami. I know Louisville beat them last year in the Hard Rock Stadium when Carson Beck, a game where Beck threw 4 interceptions. So that really cost the Hurricanes last year. I don't foresee Mensa throwing 4 picks against the Cardinals this time. Cardinals have a way better quarterback situation. Lincoln Kienholz coming over from Ohio State. I do think they could give the Hurricanes a game again, but this is the year where Cristobal brought back the most talent. Malachi Toney, Mark Fletcher, brought in Darian Mensa and Cooper Barkeep from Duke, star transfers from Duke. They're loaded on defense again. The offensive line is one of the only question marks, but they brought in the number 1 recruit, Jackson Cantwell, right there. So I think Cristobal has everything humming for him this year. I think Miami is one of the best teams in the country and very much in the mix for winning the national championship this season after coming up short in the title game a year ago. I think they're even better, if I'm being honest. So I've got the Canes beating Louisville in the title game. Ignore the score. I'm not giving a score prediction. I think that's just random there on Pro Football Network. But all right, moving on to the Big Ten Championship. So a rematch of last season, which might have been the 2 best teams in the country, Ohio State and Indiana. But obviously then Ohio State lost to Miami and later on in the playoff. If Jaden Fielding didn't miss the 27-yarder, they might have tied Indiana and gone into overtime and possibly won that game. So I think people forget the Buckeyes were right there and the closest team to beating the Hoosiers last season. They almost knocked them off, lost 10-13. This is how I see it playing out this season. I think Indiana is just as good. I think they're really being slept on as one of the national title favorites. I think, what are they, 7th in the AP poll, which is way too low and almost a tad disrespectful to a defending champs who brought back the talent they did and also brought in the top portal class with Josh Hoover, Nick Marsh, the edge rusher out of Kansas State. I'm forgetting his name, but he is awesome. They bring back guys like Stephen Daly and Kellen Wyatt on the D-line. I don't think people realize how crucial those returnees are for Cignetti and the Hoosiers. I think they're going to go undefeated in the regular season. I really do. They kind of have a cakewalk schedule as the Big Ten goes. So I believe they go 12-0. They get the only tough road game is on the road against USC. I don't see Lincoln Riley beating Kurt Cignetti in a football game this season. And then they get the Buckeyes at home. This is where I see this shaking out. I think Indiana beats Ohio State at home to go finish the regular season undefeated at 12-0. I think that's the only Buckeye loss of the season. I know Ohio State has a tough schedule, but they are just better than everyone else. I'm telling you. Texas is not winning that game week 2. I'll tell you right now, Texas ain't beating the Buckeyes week 2. So OSU is going to go 11-1 with the one loss being to Indiana on the road. However, that is when they get revenge on them in Indianapolis in the Big Ten championship game late in December. Buckeyes win the rematch. I think it'll be much more of a shootout this season than it was last year, which it was 10-13. I think IU wins the first game in Bloomington with the home crowd, tough environment for Ohio State to travel to. But then I think the Buckeyes get the better of them in the rematch to earn potentially the top overall seat when I reveal my bracket here. I think these are the two best teams in the country right now. If I'm ranking rosters and I'm just like power rating names on a spreadsheet, Ohio State and IU, Indiana are the two most loaded teams in college football. So, with the most NFL talent as well, which speaks volumes, in my opinion, in terms of like wins on the football field, like the amount of NFL talent you have. Sometimes there's a direct correlation to winning championships. So, all right, Big 12 championship here. We got Texas Tech Red Raiders versus the BYU Cougars. So, this is going to be a rematch from last season where Texas Tech blew out BYU twice. Here's my thing. I think both of these teams make the playoff this year. I think BYU goes 11-1 in the regular season with that only loss coming to Notre Dame. I think Texas Tech also goes 11-1 and then beats BYU in the championship game. I just think their roster is too much better, and just I don't think BYU closed the gap enough. Like, they got blown out twice to Tech. I don't think they've closed that gap at all. I know Bear Bachmeier is going to be even better year 2. I know LJ Martin's an absolute superstar and going to be a dog for the Cougars again. Well-coached staff, one of the best coached teams in all of college football. I just think they have not closed the gap enough. I think Texas Tech's defense is maybe the best in college football. Their D-line is like multiple All-Americans on it with Lee Hunter and A.J. Holmes. Like, these guys are studs. Texas Tech will be too much for BYU defensively. They only scored, 14 points in 2 combined games on Tech's defense last year. I don't think Bear will have enough passing totals in that game to win it with the weapons they have on the outside. I think Tech's corners will lock up BYU's receivers, and they won't be able to get much out of the passing game. LJ Martin would have to really go off in the run game, and I think Tech's D-line is too good for that, no matter who the quarterback is. So here's the thing with Texas Tech. I'm sure you all saw Tommy Castellanos, Florida State transfer, re-entered the portal, got eligibility again, and committed to Texas Tech yesterday, actually. That's a big development, potentially, because Castellanos was like a really good quarterback for Boston College and Florida State for multiple seasons in college. This guy's experienced. This guy's a winner. This guy can play. This guy's got a good arm, can run a little bit. I don't think he's the starter, though. I still think Will Hammond is going to be the starter. However, we're going to see how this shakes out. It might not even matter. And I kind of want to make the point about that and compare them to Baron Morton from last season. If you look at Baron Morton's numbers from last season, like the stats and like the type of quarterback he is, I don't think they're falling off at all. I think Will Hammond's better than Baron Morton, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. And I think he'll be even better after another year of development in Joey McGuire's system. And especially if all systems go for Hammond, like if he is healthy, fully 100% coming off that ACL, I think Hammond's going to have a really good season. I really do. So guy can run, guy has a cannon of an arm, and guy's tough as nails. So I think I don't think it's a secret that Will Hammond's better than Baron Morton from last season. So why would we not pick Tech to go just as far as they did last year? Potentially, 11-1 again. And that's what I'm doing. I got them finishing 12-1, and so there we go. I got Tech going in, and SEC championship game. All right, this one is fun. Now, LSU is the most volatile team in college football. They are absolutely loaded on both sides of the ball with NFL talent, and now they're bringing back like NFL players, like real NFL players, which I don't know how I feel about that. Probably kind of feels wrong, but Lane Kiffin doesn't really care, as he's shown. He's kind of the college football villain right now, and Sam Leavitt might be that as well, transferring over from Arizona State. You guys know my thoughts on Leavitt. He's going to be my Heisman pick. I think the guy is going to be the number one pick in the NFL draft next year. I think the talent this kid possesses is like Caleb Williams, Patrick Mahomes type of tools. Go watch the tape. Has an absolute rocket of an arm, and he's also the fastest, best dual threat QB too. And if you just count on Lane Kiffin's system and the offense working, I don't see how it doesn't go well for Leavitt. I don't see how it doesn't work out super successfully for the Tigers this year. That is why I've got them going 11-1. Taking down the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC championship game. Yes, I know LSU has not beaten Georgia in quite some time. Georgia is going to go 11-1. That is literally their floor. You can bank that in. You can almost pencil that in every season under Kirby Smart to go at 11-1. It's just what they do. However, in a game where they have to win a shootout like this against Lane Kiffin's LSU Tigers and the offensive juggernaut they're about to be this season led by Leavitt, I got the Tigers. I think Sam Leavitt's one of the few QBs in America who can take down Kirby Smart, who can beat the Georgia Bulldogs. Do you understand how hard it is to beat Kirby in a game of football, in a 60-minute full game of football? Like, it takes performances like Trinidad Chambliss displayed last season. It takes the one game where C.J. Stroud played the game of his life and they didn't even win. They lost by 1. Like, it takes heroic all-time performances by quarterbacks to beat Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. I think Sam Leavitt has the talent to do that and has the abilities to have an all-time performance against a team like Georgia. Georgia might not have the weapons to keep up. That's my thing. I don't love their receiving core at all. I think Georgia's good enough on the offensive line and in the ground game, running back-wise, to move dudes and stay on schedule and not ask Gunnar Stockton to do too much with his arm. Like I said, 11-1 is the floor. I don't know which regular season game Georgia loses. Maybe it's just a typical Bama loss again, and then that's the only one they lose, and then they move on. However, I don't think Georgia can win a shootout against the LSU Tigers this season. That's why I'm going LSU to win the SEC championship, and you'll see what seed they finish at. All right, American Championship. Now, I'm going to give it away. This is going to be my group of 6 team, group of 5, however many are left, group of 6 championship team. I got the South Florida Bulls, man. I got South Florida beating Tulane in the AAC title game. Michael Van Buren, a transfer from the SEC, has played for both Mississippi State and the LSU Tigers, speaking of LSU, and was not that he was like exceeded expectations at those schools, but this is a guy who has SEC experience and was a starter, multi-game starter for 2 teams. He has seen every SEC defense. The American Conference is going to be a cakewalk to him. This is going to be easy coverages to him defensively compared to what he's seen in the SEC. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Like, look at the numbers what Drew Messemaker put up last year in the American Conference. This is the defenses that Michael Van Buren is going to be going up against this season, and I think this kid is far superior than most quarterbacks in the American, far more talented than most quarterbacks that South Florida's ever had, especially with Brian Hartline now as the head coach. I know Golesh just left for Auburn. I think they made a tremendous hire with Brian Hartline coming over from Ohio State. Brought a couple wide receivers from Ohio State, too. You can expect those guys to go off in the American against subpar competition compared to what the corners they were facing in the Big Ten. So we know Brian Hartline can coach. We know he's going to have an elite offense and good receivers. And I think Michael Van Buren can absolutely drive the car here and get the South Florida Bulls into the playoff. Their schedule is, I don't want to call it a joke. I think that's disrespectful, but it's kind of a joke when you look at it. They don't have many out of conference games. I believe they play Bowling Green and I forget their other ones, but no tough games. an easier American schedule that I see them only going 11-1. They're favored in every single game but one right now, and I believe it's on the road at East Carolina. And that's a team that I think they're better than, just roster-wise. So as I was going through my group of 6 teams and like deciding who I wanted to pick, you kind of got to go based on schedule. And when I was thinking about South Florida, I looked at their schedule. I saw 11 wins at the minimum almost. So I think they can beat Tulane in the AAC title game and make it to their college football playoff, taking down Tulane, who made the playoff last year with Jake Retzoff. All right, last few conferences. I won't spend too much time on these. The group of 5. Here's the rest of 5 conferences here. So we got Conference USA, we got the MAC Championship, Mountain West, Sun Belt, and then the new Pac-12. So I'll just go run through these quickly here for you guys, and then we'll get into my official bracket, and you can see my full picks. I got the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers winning the Conference USA Championship. They always run the air raid office and always have – it always seems like they have very good quarterbacks who can just who just air it out and let it rip. So I love watching WKU's offense every year. MAC Championship, how can I go against my Toledo Rockets? They're a potential group of 6 playoff candidate as well. I genuinely think they're going to beat Michigan State week 1 next week, Friday night. So I think the Rockets are winning that game against Michigan State in East Lansing. And I think it's going to jumpstart a tremendous season out of the Rockets, where I don't know if they can run the table to go undefeated and like make the college football playoff, but I do think they win the MAC at least and go like 10-2. They always slip up in random games in every season. Toledo does in the MAC, like Bowling Green, they always have their number. Northern Illinois always has their number. So like I do expect a couple MAC teams to get them, but Western Michigan is my runner-up in the conference. Got some really good pass rushers on the edge there. So, but overall, Toledo Rockets with their new coach and quarterback transferred over from Mercer. So expecting big things in that offense. Mountain West Championship. So UNLV versus North Dakota State. Newly acquired North Dakota State into the FBS. So joining the Mountain West Conference. I think they're going to have a really good first season, too. I don't think they're going to win the conference. I think UNLV wins this game, led by Jackson Arnold. JA11 transferring over from Auburn, a quarterback I was high on a couple years ago coming out of high school. Still has a lot of potential, still has some tools and some running ability. North Dakota State has been dominant in the FCS for many years now, one of the best FCS teams ever. So they finally made the jump. Excited to see what they can accomplish in the FBS ranks, but I think they will have a limited first season where they probably go like 9-3, honestly, like still win a lot of games, but I do think UNLV is the better team, top to bottom, and their offense is going to be nasty under Dan Mullen. We know he likes to run up the score as much as possible. So UNLV Rebels beating North Dakota State in the Mountain West Championship. Sun Belt Championship, so I'm going JMU over Troy. James Madison, I know they lost Bob Chesney, but I think they still have a good infrastructure there, and they are going to still be on top. They have the highest odds to win the conference, so feeling good about the Dukes and what they can accomplish this season. Coming off a playoff year where they really gave Oregon a better game than I think a lot of people remember. So, respect nod to the Dukes to win the Sun Belt again and repeat as conference champs. All right, last conference, the new Pac-12. This is a wild one. This is a new Pac-12 here. San Diego State and Boise State in the championship game for that. I got Boise. I think Boise wins it. I just think top to bottom, they're the best team in the Pac-12. They're the most loaded roster. And I think San Diego State can challenge them, but I think Boise is always like a 10-2 potential team. They do play Oregon week 1. I expect them to lose that game. I don't think it'll be as close as the game a couple years ago where they almost beat Oregon. Do you remember that game in Oregon where week 2 where Ginty went off and like almost single-handedly beat the Oregon Ducks, who were like number 3 ranked? So they do play week 1. I don't expect that to be a close game again. I kind of think Oregon blows them out this year, and just a weaker Boise State team than what we're used to in the playoffs a few years ago, but still got a lot of respect for what they've accomplished there at that program. So, all right, that is all I got on the conference championship games. Those are my 10 conference champion picks. Now let's get into the college football playoff bracket. I will reveal to you guys my bracket, and I will go through my picks round by round, game by game, before we get down to the national championship game. All right, here we go. As you can see here, you can see my college football playoff bracket. First round, here are the seedings I'm going with. So I'm going to read their records. I've got the Ohio State Buckeyes as my number 1 seed in the college football playoff, going 12-1. I've got Indiana going as my number 2 seed, going also 12-1. I've got LSU as the 3 seed, going 12-1 with a regular season loss, and then beating Georgia in the SEC championship game. Indiana will go 12-0 before losing to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Georgia falls after losing to LSU, but still sits at 12-1, so they earn the 4 seed. Miami Hurricanes will finish 12-1, but the ACC schedule is not as favorable, so I don't think the committee will give them any higher than the 5 seed. 6 seed, I've got the Oregon Ducks. Honestly, it'll probably be a drama-free regular season for the Ducks. They kind of have an easier schedule. I don't see them winning at Ohio State. That's the one loss I put on their schedule. I think Ohio State's just the better team and got the better quarterback. It's close, but I see Oregon as an 11-1 just missing out in the Big Ten title game due to that loss to the Buckeyes on the road in Columbus. So last time they played, it was in Oregon. Well, the last time they actually played was the Rose Bowl. We remember Ohio State blew them out, but the regular season matchup was the one in Eugene where Oregon won 32-31 off of Will Howard sliding down early at the last second. So, drama-free season out of Oregon. Again, they are loaded, 11-1. They might be higher than this ranking. I think they went 11-1 and made the 5 seed last year. So, wouldn't be surprised if they're like 4 or 5 again. But they will have to, in order to make the Big Ten championship, they're going to have to beat Ohio State on the road. And I don't see them doing that. So, that's why I've got them down at 6 seed. All right, Notre Dame, a team we haven't talked about, is my 7 seed. So the only team not in the Fighting Irish are not in a conference, so we haven't really spent much time talking about them. But I've got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish going 11-1 in the regular season, earning the 7 seed. Notre Dame fans might not like to hear this, but I genuinely think Miami beats them again on their home turf. I think Miami's just the better roster and has the better quarterback. And I think people are sleeping on like how much Miami still brought Ahmad Moten back on the defensive line, and Damon Wilson is going to be a stud on the edge too. But he's not Bane, but these guys are not. These guys are still very elite at their position. So I do think Notre Dame goes 11-1. I think they beat BYU. The only 3 games on their schedule that are tough are SMU, BYU, and Miami. 2 of them are on the road. I think they handle business against SMU and BYU. I don't see the Cougars having enough on offense to keep up with the Irish. That's why I've got the Fighting Irish going 11-1. I do think Miami walks into their home stadium and wins. I know that's probably one where Irish have got that game circled as the reason they missed the playoffs last season. CJ Carr was amazing in the second half. That kid showed up to play in the second half after a rough first half and almost led a comeback before Carson Beck took over. But I do think the Irish go 11-1, making it as a 7 seed. If they don't lose that game to Miami, they're very much in line for the number 1 overall seed. Now, I don't think the committee will give it to them because they're not in a conference. I think the highest they'll probably get is 2, 3, or 4. But if the Irish win the Miami game, they will likely be 12-0 undefeated entering the playoffs, probably as one of the top 4 seeds. So we'll see. Number 8, I've got Texas, another team we haven't really talked about, but I've got Texas going 10-2. I think they lose to Ohio State week 2, but I think they only lose 1 game in the SEC then, which will be on the road at LSU. I do think Texas has arguably the best defense in college football, and it's not being talked about enough. The offensive line is massively improved from a season ago where Arch was kind of struggling behind that protection and didn't have as much time to throw. Offensive tackle Trevor Goosby's injury is not going to affect him into the season. He should be all right by week 2 against Ohio State. Like I said, I don't think they win that game. That game is very important for Texas or OSU. I mean, flat out, straight up, it's very important. If Arch wins that game, again, I will shake his hand. You have my full respect, Arch. If you win that game, I don't think you will. But I still think Texas is good enough top to bottom that they're not going to lose 3 games. They went 9-3 last year, and it felt like Arch could not have played worse. So if he improves at all and is better and is the quarterback that people project him to be, they could go 11-1. They could be dominant. They could be even better. I think OSU Texas is going to be a shootout this time. That I think the Buckeyes still walk out of there with a win. I'll be surprised if Texas wins that, because if they do, then they're probably getting ready for an undefeated season, go number 1 overall. But I've got Texas sneaking in at 10-2. Texas Tech, I've got as my 9 seed just because I think the Big 12 just gets a little less respect, whether they should be at that or not, at going like 12-1 or 11-2. They might slip up late in the season to Oklahoma State with Drew Mestemaker on the road. That's a game I've kind of circled as a potential loss for Texas Tech. And on top of that, they get week 3 against Houston. We don't know the quarterback situation, if Hammond's ready, if he's struggling, if Castellanos is playing, if it's the 3rd string, who knows? So I've got 2 questionable losses on Texas Tech's schedule. They likely go 12-1, but I've got them in as my 9 seed here just in case. And then BYU falls to the 11 here with Texas A&M sandwiched in as the 10 seed. Yes, this is probably my hottest take of the playoff bracket is Texas A&M being my 10 seed. That schedule is ruthless. That schedule is tough after kind of an easier SEC slate last year where they went 11-1. That only loss coming in the final week to Texas. I think Mike Elko and Marcel Reed are ready to go off. I think they are going to be very good again. I think the defense has a very high floor that is always going to keep Texas A&M in the mix. Their defensive line, their pass rushers are always good. Mike Elko is a defensive-minded guy. They brought back Mario Craver, who is one of the best wide receivers in college football. An absolute stud on the outside, dynamic as hell. Marcel Reed has improved. He's got a chip on his shoulder. This guy came up short in the playoff last year, first round against Miami, threw the interception. Maybe that's the motivation he needs to improve and improve his arm strength, keep working out, getting stronger, reading defenses better, using his legs more. I think he could stand to use his legs even more than he did because it felt like there's so many 3rd downs where it's like 3rd and 6 and Marcel Reed has an open lane. It's like, dude, you are athletic enough. Like, get the first down. Like, you can outrun those guys to the marker and get the first. I see him doing that a lot more this year because I don't think the run game is going to be as good. They lost a couple running backs. I think Marcel Reed is going to have to make plays with his legs. And this is probably, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if A&M went like 7-5. I am banking on them going 10-2 because I like their schedule again. I think the only games they lose are I think they get Ole Miss, and then I think they lose to they don't play Ole Miss. They play Texas and LSU. I think those are the only 2 losses they have. They have a tough one against Alabama. That's the question mark game right there. That is the game to circle if you're an A&M fan because on paper, I don't love Alabama. I've said that a couple times. I've got them going 9-3 with one of those losses coming at the hands of A&M. The Aggies are going to have to show up to play that game. I think it's in Tuscaloosa. They have beaten the Crimson Tide before, though. They have beaten Alabama before. They have kind of had Alabama's number in random games, going all the way back to Johnny Manziel and then the Zach Calzada game in A&M a few seasons ago with the game-winning field goal. We all remember that. So, yeah, I know I just spent too much time on A&M, but that's why I think they make it in as the 10 seed. And then with BYU as as my 11, just coming up short. I don't think they get punished for losing an extra game. That's the thing with BYU. BYU's Big 12 schedule is a cakewalk. I think they go undefeated in the conference with the only loss coming at the hands of Notre Dame in that November game that they have. BYU goes 11-1, loses to Texas Tech. Both teams finish 11-2. They're not going to punish BYU and knock them out. They didn't do it for Alabama. You can't do it for BYU. That would be so unfair if you did that. I don't think the committee will punish teams that lose in their conference championship game. I think it's silly. I've always said you should not be punished for playing an extra game that you earned the right to be in. I think it's backwards. So that's why I've got BYU in as my 11 seed. The team they beat out here. So we all know South Florida has to be in as the 12 seed for the group of 6. South Florida's going to be 12-1 with that schedule. I'll be shocked if they lose more than like 2 games, truly, with Brian Hartline. The team that BYU knocks out is Louisville. So I went back and forth on my last team on who my 11th team was going to be, because you always got to set aside the group of 6 team as your 12 seed, unless there's Boise a couple years ago as a 3. A&M just beats out Louisville for this because I just think the SEC gets the more respect. They have the harder schedule. They have the way tougher slate. Louisville will end up probably coming up short because of their week 1 loss to Ole Miss that I'm expecting, and then a final loss to Miami. It'll be tough. Like I think that's the one that the committee will have to go back and forth on is Louisville, BYU. Another reason I'm going with BYU is because I put Louisville in my playoff last year, and they kind of stunk it up. So I don't want to make that same mistake again and come up short. So Louisville, I put you in last year, and you got to earn my respect back this year. So I got you finishing second in the ACC, just missing out as literally the 13th seed. So I've got them as the first team out. Louisville is the 13th seed, with South Florida as the 12, BYU as the 11, A&M as the 10. I just think they have more respect for the SEC and the Big 12 at this rate. And I don't think they will punish BYU again. So, all right, that is the seeding. So I've revealed my bracket and my playoff seeds. I hope I did a decent job of explaining that to you guys. So now we are going to go through and make the official bracket picks. So this is the fun part. This is the nitty gritty. This is where we're really getting into some predictions, some wild takes, and some futures, if you will. All right, first round. Let's get into the first round here, the 8-9 matchup. Now, I love a little in-state matchup. Now, you guys know me. I like to see epic matchups, epic storylines, hero arcs versus villain arcs. I love that. I love the cinematic stuff of the game. I love the games within a game. I love the storylines that are hanging over the 2 quarterbacks or the coaches, the 2 coaching staffs. I love it all. So I like to bring drama into the mix, and I want to make these games as exciting as possible. So we're setting up a little in-state Texas battle here between the Longhorns and the Red Raiders. I've got Texas coming out on top in that one, beating the Red Raiders. I think if they get that game at home, Arch Manning will be ready to prove he is the best in that state and that the Longhorns run the state of Texas. Texas Tech's going to have another good season. I think they're kind of going to have the exact same year they had last season, and it ultimately will come down to the quarterback question coming up short in the playoffs. And they will reach the playoffs for a second consecutive season, winning 11 games. However, they will lose first round both games. Technically, they lost in the quarterfinals last year as they got the 4 seed, but they will lose in their first playoff game, and they will finish another season without winning a playoff game. Texas Tech's loaded, like I said. Their defense is insane. For me, it's just the offense. I don't really love the receivers and quarterbacks they have at Texas Tech compared to Texas, who has Cam Coleman and Arch Manning and Relief Brown to lead the offensive charge. All right, another in-state matchup here. So we got South Florida versus Miami. This was a game from last season where Miami won 48-12. They might win by even more. So South Florida will be better, but I do think Miami's even better than last season with Mensa at the helm. I think the offense is going to be even more explosive than it was with Malachi Toney and some of the other receivers they got left in Miami. All right, A&M versus Notre Dame here. So this is a rematch. So as you can see, I like to add a couple storylines to each of my games. So this is a rematch from the game that ultimately cost Notre Dame a season ago in the playoffs where they lost on the final play of the game. They lost 41-40 against A&M in an absolute shootout, a crazy game where it was back and forth and felt like Notre Dame was going to blow them out, and then A&M came out of nowhere, came back. CJ Carr was great that game. This is the game I expect and the Irish to flip that on and win this time. So I'm a little lower on CJ Carr in my quarterback rankings, but he is number one in Heisman odds for a reason. The processor he is, the IQ, the football IQ this kid possesses. Everybody's raving about his arm strength and his pocket mobility and the offensive numbers they are going to put up this season. So I want to see it. I'm excited to see it. I do think they get the better of A&M this season. I think the Irish are much improved. They brought a lot of talent back. Leonard Moore on this cornerback, the best cornerback in college football, and they got all new running backs. But that's kind of going to be the question. We know they have one of the best O-lines in college football year in and year out. They're going to be able to move the ball on the ground. It's going to come down to the outside wide receivers, a couple of transfers from Ohio State. And if CJ Carr can really be the leader and like the catalyst, if you will, to just take over as the for Jeremiah Love's role, because Jeremiah Love was kind of like the main catalyst for their offense last year, and Jadarian Price. You lose 2 first-round running backs, your quarterback's going to have to pick up some slack. So I'm just still waiting to see if CJ Carr can do it, but I do think they do it in the regular season at least, going 11-1 to earn the 7th seed. And I think he gets revenge on Texas A&M this season. Getting that game at home again, that'll be another game where Marcel Reed and Mike Elko have to travel up to South Bend. I think they come up short against the Irish this time in the first round. All right, last first-round game, BYU versus Oregon. This is a fun one. This is like a pack. This feels like an out West Coast game, really. I mean, two mountain teams, basically. So not much hot takes here. Oregon's the better team, top to bottom. You could make a case they have the best roster in college football. They have the most experienced roster in college football. I think that's not debatable in terms of who they brought back on the defensive line and the offense, for that matter. Dante Moore, DeCorian Moore, Evan Stewart, Jamari Johnson, and then defensively, the guys like Bear Alexander, who have been studs for a few years now, Amari Washington, stud, Mateo Uiagalelei, so a dominant edge rusher, going to be a first-round pick this season. All of these guys should be playing in the NFL, and they're back at Eugene for Dan Lanning for another season. So when you think about that, the NFL talent on this team, very high floor. It's going to be tough to beat them. It's going to be hard to beat the Oregon Ducks this season. I don't expect many teams to do it. All right, moving into the quarterfinals now. Second round quarterfinals. Man, this sets up another rematch. Wow. So we get a season rematch for the Buckeyes, and another rematch from a couple the playoff game they played a few seasons ago with Will Howard and Quinn Ewers was one of the best college football games I can remember. That game was so epic. That game, I swear Quinn Ewers had him on the ropes and before the pick 6 from Jack Sawyer, or the fumble recovery, and that was obviously the game changer. But I really thought Ewers was going to lead the Longhorns down the field and win that game until that Jack Sawyer touchdown recovery. But man, that was an epic game. Last season's wasn't as good. I expect this week 2 matchup to be way higher scoring than week 1 last year. The quarterbacks are much better than the offensive coordinators trust their quarterbacks much more this season. So I said it I am staying on my week 2 pick. I am making a point here. Texas is not beating Ohio State. I think a lot of people are just handing Arch the Heisman and handing him the number 1 pick in the championship. They're not on Ohio State's level. The Buckeyes are better top to bottom. D-line is the one question I have for Ohio State going up against Texas's pass protection, but I think the secondary OSU has with guys like Earl Little Jr., Terry Moore, and Jermaine Matthews, I think it's going to put Arch in a blender again. I don't think he's going to be ready to beat the Buckeyes either time. If they meet in the playoffs again, I think Buckeyes win both. But this is more to make my point that Ohio State's winning week 2. Texas fans, if you might not like that, but if you win that game, then we can talk. But I don't see them beating Ohio State. So that's why I got the Buckeyes moving on. All right, number 4 versus 5, Miami versus Georgia, the Carson Beck Bowl. So this would have been the Carson Beck Bowl from last year's playoffs that we almost got. We almost got this game. I wanted this game so badly. College football fans deserved this matchup so badly last year, to see Carson Beck go up against his old team, Georgia, and like all his former teammates and players who apparently hate him now. But this one is one where I would have picked Georgia a season ago because of Beck, because I thought it would have been like too much pressure on him and he wouldn't have, like, the Georgia secondary would have known where he was going with the ball and like read his eyes and like picked him off multiple times. I think Miami's better. This is kind of one where I talked about, like, in order to beat Georgia, you have to have an elite offense and you have to be able to win shootouts and you have to have playmakers on the outside who can win one-on-one. Miami absolutely has that, and Georgia doesn't really. So, like, that's not to say in 12 weeks from now there won't be a wide receiver on Georgia who develops and goes off and shows that he's like a NFL first-round pick. But right now, I can't project that. Their best receiver right now is Lawson Lucky. So, like, or London Humphreys, who is not close to what Ladd McConkey was. I've seen people comp him to Ladd. He's not close to Ladd. So I can't pick Georgia to win a shootout right now. And I think Mensa would absolutely be able to throw the ball against their team with guys like Malachi Toney and Cooper Burkett. So I got the Hurricanes setting up another rematch against Ohio State from last season. Because, yeah, I think this is what it takes to beat a team like Georgia. And people are going to learn that it's like you have to have an elite offense. You have to have guys who can win a shootout, and you have to have guys who are gamers. We talk about gamers being random players who just, like, play their best on the biggest stage, or, like, you know, primetime game, they always go off for the crowd. Like, I want guys like that. I feel like that's this Miami Hurricane team going up against Georgia and Kirby Smart, one of the few teams that could actually beat the Georgia Bulldogs this season. So kind of a tough matchup for Georgia, because if it was like BYU or like Texas going, like, Georgia blew out Texas last year. I firmly believe they're still better than Texas Longhorns in the SEC, but yeah. So that's what I got on that. All right, moving on. Another rematch from a couple years ago. So this is fun. I like to add narratives. I love to add narratives to each of my games and make reasons why this game is going to happen and why this matchup will happen. Because last year I predicted Ohio State to play Miami in the college football playoff back in August, and I got that right. And I even said Miami was going to beat Ohio State too, and I got that right too. Remember this game a couple years ago where Notre Dame kind of blew out IU up at South Bend, and that was kind of when IU was still more fraudulent in the 2024 Curtis Rourke team. We still didn't trust him yet. This is going to be the antithesis of that game. This is where Cignetti flexes his muscles and wins the in-state battle and shows Marcus Freeman who the best coach in college football is. I think this is where Indiana shows that they have fully arrived. They are not going anywhere. They are better. They are more formidable in the trenches. People are sleeping on Josh Hoover. I think Josh Hoover is really good. I think he throws a great, accurate ball, has very good arm talent, and I think the weapons they have are going to make him look a lot better than he did at TCU. So Notre Dame, this is where your season ends for me. I think you guys go 12-1 or 12-2 at the end, losing to Indiana. I do think you beat A&M and advance in the playoffs, but the revenge tour comes up short to Indiana, who I now think has surpassed you as the best college football program in the state of Indiana. And but yeah, that'll be a fun one too. That'll be a fun in-state rivalry for a lot of Indiana fans. But I think Indiana has not lost as much as people think in terms of like NFL talent and like just from that team a season ago who literally rolled through everybody, not even close, going 16-0. So yeah, that's why I still have respect for Cignetti, because I didn't put them in my playoff a season ago and I felt like an idiot. So not making that same mistake again. All right, Oregon versus LSU. Man, this is going to be an epic, epic battle, man. Just fireworks in this game. Dan Lanning versus Lane Kiffin. Can you think of a more intriguing head coaching matchup, like for in terms of like offensive fireworks and just like overall, like I guess I'll say aura and like just like their intensity as human beings and coaches. So this is going to be an all-time game here. Oregon versus LSU. Maybe like we're talking like potentially in the 40s, like team scoring in the 40s. I can see Sam Leavitt versus Dante Moore. Are you serious? That's an all-time quarterback matchup, man. Sam Leavitt is from Oregon. Everyone knows he was born and raised in Oregon, and like the Duck like almost went there and for his past transfer portal, and then committed to LSU because Dante Moore came back to school. But Sam Leavitt was looking at Oregon because he's from there. His family still lives there. Now he traveled all the way to Baton Rouge in Louisiana. Sam Leavitt takes down the Oregon Ducks. I think this is one of the few teams that can beat Oregon because top to bottom, they can match their talent. They can match their offensive. They can match them throw for throw. Dante Moore and Sam Leavitt are my second and third best quarterback in the nation. I think Leavitt's 2. I think Moore's 3. That's why I go quarterback wins out here. They're both 16-4 in their careers as starters for the starting quarterbacks. 16-4 starting record for their careers. However, Sam Leavitt is 6-1 against ranked match teams. 6-1 against ranked opponents, while Dante Moore is 6-4. So he struggles in some of the big games as much. Hasn't been great in some of the big games. Struggled against Indiana both times last season. Where Sam Leavitt plays his best in the biggest games. That's almost like the only time he plays his best is if it's a big game against a really good team in like a big moment. He like can't. Down for down, Leavitt struggles consistency, which is where Lane Kiffin needs to get him right. But if it's a big game, I almost just expect Leavitt to win it because he shows up to play. Guy is a gamer. Guy is gritty, tough as nails. And I think this is where Lane Kiffin outsmarts Dan Lanning and wins that game. But this would be fun. Like this would be my favorite game of the college football playoff, I think. So could be like the most offensive fireworks that you'd see. All right, now we're getting into the semifinals. Oh man, this is getting exciting. Final four teams. Yes. So this is my final 4: Ohio State, Miami, Indiana, and LSU. I know I picked Miami to beat Ohio State a season ago, and they did, and they looked like the better team all across the board. The entire game, they looked like the better team. In the trenches, I didn't think Sand looked as bad as people thought in that Miami game. I went back and rewatched it. I thought he was good. I thought he was fine. I thought there were only a few plays where he really got rid of the football too quick because he was kind of like worried about the pass rush, and that's Bain and Mesidor, and those guys aren't there anymore. Those guys aren't there. OSU's offensive line was the downfall last season. That was the reason they lost that game, got mauled. That is night and day improved from a season ago. They have improved their offensive line. Ohio State might have the best offensive line in college football. I don't think that's going to get moved like it did in the Miami game last year. Austin Screverell moving over to guard where he's better suited, and they have NFL talent at their tackles. I think Sand has gotten stronger. He has bulked up. He has put on weight. They said he's improved in the pocket. I do think his pocket presence will be better and stronger this season, and that's where I think Miami comes up just short because I don't think the D line will be able to get as much pressure on Sand as it did last season in that game where he got sacked 5 times. 5 times. Sand was sacked against Miami, but that was, again, 2 NFL star pass rushers in Bain and Mesidor. They don't have those guys. I know they got Moton. I know they got Damon Wilson, but I think the winning battle for OSU will come in the offensive line, and that's where I think all the difference will be in this game compared to 2025. So I've got Ohio State taking down Miami, getting revenge. Julian Saint gets revenge on Mario Cristobal and Miami Hurricanes and outduels Darian Mensah. So here's my thing with Mensah versus Beck. I know I predicted Beck to go further, and I'm not comping the two as prospects. Like, Darian Mensah's obviously more talented and like has a way better arm and like more mobile in the pocket. Higher ceiling, way higher potential for the offense with Darian Mensah under center versus Carson Beck. However, there are things that I actually think Mensah does worse than Beck, like down for down and like play for play, snap for snap. Beck keeps the offense on schedule. Everyone knew he's more like the underneath point guard, game manager type, but he still could beat you with accuracy over the top. And like, I did think there were elements of Beck's game that contribute to more winning football versus Mensah, who could maybe put the ball in harm's way a little more. And that could ultimately be the difference. Again, Mensah can throw it further. He's more athletic. He's way more talented, better prospect. But I do think there were elements to Beck running the offense that wins game for game and is hard to beat. Like I said, he was tough to kill. I think saying we'll take down Mensah this time, I think Buckeyes get revenge on Miami after last season. All right, next semifinal game, Indiana versus LSU. So this is a good one, man. Cignetti versus Lane Kiffin, another intriguing coaching matchup here. Josh Hoover versus Sam Leavitt. They played once before, Arizona State and TCU. Sam Leavitt won that matchup, beat Josh Hoover after Hoover started out on fire. He was ripping it in the first half of that game with 7 big-time throws. Leavitt came back, led a 17-0 comeback in that game, and won it on a fourth and goal play call. And then Hoover fumbled. This is where I choose the quarterback to win the game. Sam Leavitt will beat Josh Hoover again. Like, Hoover will not be ready for that matchup. I know that's a game where, like, Cignetti probably, like, it will take a lot to outplay them and outduel them. That is where I think LSU studs on the outside, like Jace Brown, win and ultimately help win out for the LSU Tigers. Guys like Caden Durham in the run game are going to be huge. It is ultimately going to come down to everything working, everything clicking in Lane Kiffin's system, and Sam Leavitt being the quarterback that projected to be, being the number one pick that I project him to be, being the Heisman that I project him to be. He has to play that well. He has to live up to that hype. He has to live up to those standards. But I think if you get him in a big game like this against Kurt Cignetti, the defending champions, with a quarterback like Josh Hoover, I think Leavitt will know that he's better in that game and can win that matchup and put the team on his back. And that's what I expect him to do in the semifinals. And I think LSU has the defense, too. Have we not seen what they've just added in the D-line? Like, it's coming over from Ole Miss. Like, I don't see how this LSU team is worse than last year's Ole Miss team. And I think Leavitt's better than Trinidad Chambliss. I know that probably didn't show up on tape last season, but I think if Lane can get him right, get him on time, get him on schedule, get him more accurate, I think the sky is the limit for this LSU team because they are absolutely loaded. I'm talking like 2019 levels with Joe Burrow. Like, that is what I think Sam Leavitt has potential-wise, ceiling-wise at the next level. So that's why I've got it working. I do think it clicks. Like, again, LSU is a team that you could see if it doesn't work out going 8-4, but I am kind of putting my faith into Lane Kiffin and Sam Leavitt here. And they burnt me last year, you know. Leavitt burnt me last year picking him in the Big 12, and they got hurt. But, yeah, I think everything's going to come together, and I think the LSU team they have is way better than the Ole Miss team that he led to the playoffs. And I think Sam Leavitt is the most talented quarterback that Lane Kiffin has ever had. I think he's far better than Matt Corral. I think he's way better than Jackson Dart. And I think he's way better than Trinidad Chambliss. I really believe that. And I think he has the highest ceiling of all those guys and the most potential and the best tools. So it's on him now. It is on Leavitt. I know it's asking a lot of one player, but I think this guy is absolutely nails in big-time games. And I think he'll show up with his legs and his arm and put the team on his back to take down the Indiana Hoosiers, setting up an awesome, awesome national championship game. A game we should have got in 2019. This should have been the national championship game in 2019 with Justin Fields versus Joe Burrow. Would have been so epic to see Joe Burrow taking on his former team in Ohio State. We all want to see that. And then Clemson beat Ohio State in that the semifinal game, which was the Fields versus Lawrence, an all-time college football game where Fields threw the pick at the end. But for college football fans, this game is 7 years too late. That's why I'm making it the national championship game this season. Ohio State versus LSU, setting up an epic SEC versus Big Ten matchup where what happens here? What trumps out? Does the Big Ten continue their run of national championships after 3 in a row? Or does the SEC come back and win it and break the streak? And does Lane Kiffin get over the hump and lead his first team to a national championship led by Sam Levitt? What do we think? As a Midwesterner and a Big Ten guy, I am taking the Ohio State Buckeyes to win the 2026 College Football National Championship. I just think they're the best team in the country. I think they're the most loaded team in the country. I think the only question mark / potential weakness Ohio State currently faces is their defensive line. The D-line is the only question mark where they don't really have a proven elite pass rusher who is like already totaled like 10 sacks or whatever. The best one is Quay Russaw, who's still more of a project and was not really great on tape at Alabama, but this kid's got tools, this kid's got potential, and they've also brought back a couple other guys who played less snaps last season. But they reload. They have always one of the best recruiting classes. Ryan Day knows how to coach them up. We thought their defense was going to be bad last year, and they were the best defense in college football with Matt Patricia as the DC. I think it's going to be just as good. I think the secondary is nails. Got some questions at linebacker, but offensively, I think there are virtually no weaknesses. They already got the running back in Bo Jackson, who did not really come on strong till the end of the season last year. He's going to get the bulk of the carries from week 1 and on right away. I think Bo Jackson is a beast, man. We already talked about Julian saying, you guys know my thoughts on him. I think he's the best quarterback in the country. I think he's the most accurate quarterback in the country. People are not talking about enough about his 77 completion percentage and like the fact that those were not just easy throws like dinking and dunks. Like 9.2 yards per pass, and this guy was throwing the ball downfield. These are not easy passes, just like dumping it off to the running back. So, and we haven't even mentioned the best player in the entire sport, Jeremiah Smith. They have the best wide receiver, best overall player in college football, who is literally unstoppable. I don't see how if you just pass this guy the ball 20 times a game, I don't know how you could stop him. Urban Meyer said that a couple years ago. Like, could they just throw to him 20 times? I think they could try it, and it would probably work. Like, guy could probably go for 200 yards, and I don't see anything slowing him down, really. So I think this is going to be an all-time game. Epic matchup. I think Levitt has the horses and the talent to win a shootout, but I think Ohio State is too good. I think Julian Saint's too good. I think Smith is too good. I don't see LSU having enough answers on defense to stop the Buckeye offense game on the line when it matters most. I think Buckeyes get out to a lead. I think Levitt leads a heroic comeback, but still comes up short. I think it's a final drive where, kind of like last season, where Levitt probably throws a pick like everyone thinks he does all the time, where they come up short and like Jermaine Matthews picks off the final ball on a game-winning drive and Levitt comes up short. Ohio State wins. Gosh, I don't even know, like 37-33. I'll just say something like that. Shootout, higher scoring game. There you go. College football national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes. That is what I got this season. So 2026 national champions, Ohio State. Pretty chalky. I know that's not fun. I know that's not like a hot take or anything, but they are the number 1 ranked team in the AP poll. So that's not like, not a crazy take or out of nowhere, but LSU is probably my this is my team that I'm like banking on or, projecting to surpass their win total, I guess. So I see the least amount of weaknesses on Ohio State's roster. That's how I got to this conclusion. And I think they have arguably the 2 best players in the sport with Julian Saint and Jeremiah Smith. I think Saint's going to have a really good season again. I think he's going to light it up statistically, going for over 4,000 yards. And I think he outduels Sam Levitt in a QB battle for the ages in the national championship game. Ohio State winning their second title in 3 years. Buckeye fans, there you go. I hope that makes you like Ryan Day a little more. I mean, if Ryan Day wins the second one, that throws him into some wild conversations for head coaches. So that is my final college football playoff bracket here. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe below to The Point After with Mitch Kaiser. Appreciate you tuning in. Let me know what you think of my bracket. Comment yours below. Tell me who you think is going to win the national championship. Let me know if you think this is a good pick or the worst pick ever. There you go. That's all I got. Thanks for tuning in to Football Fridays, my college football playoff predictions. We will be back on Monday for a mailbag Monday, and we'll kind of recap some of week 0. Enjoy the first college football games of the season tomorrow, week 0, kicking off at noon, North Carolina versus TCU in Ireland, I believe. So can't wait to get into it. Ohio State, you're my national champion. We'll see how it works, and appreciate you guys tuning in, and have a great weekend. Enjoy the games.